This is an out of the theater in the car driving reaction of the Holdovers. Just saw it. Alexander Payne is a master. I don't like all of his movies, or I should say they don't all interest me, especially when he gets into the really nitty gritty kind of gross protagonist of Nebraska or About Schmidt. But when he finds that groove of touching, heartwarming dramedy, I'm not sure there's anyone better working today at nailing that. There are people who make zanier comedies, there are people who make more hardcore drama, but he has his own lane, and only he knows how to write movies exactly the way he writes them. He's a hero in that regard, and I imagine a lot of other writers must look up to him or respect him tremendously for his ability to iterate on his sort of thing. And you could say about so many actors that they've rarely been better than when they're in one of his films, because he gets to the core of the characters he's writing in a way that's not on the nose. So he gives the actors a lot of meat and a lot of room to play and discover that character. He leaves a lot of bandwidth as a human being feels in their life to act different ways at different times. For instance, someone could be gruff one minute and then be kind of nice to someone the other moment. That happens in real life in different circumstances. He allows his characters to go through those circumstances, and then it doesn't feel atonal when things happen later which seem either in or out of character. It all seems like part of the story of this character discovering a new part of themselves or changing. He doesn't always have to announce this character is changing. He'll just show you the character doing something that we have come to think would be uncharacteristic, and yet we accept it because the character has been given so much humanistic room to breathe throughout their portrayal. So he's an extremely talented writer. And I should look up to make sure he wrote this thing. It feels like he wrote it. I'm assuming he did. But at any rate, he directs the hell out of this movie in a very understated way. He lets the scenery do the talking. The set design and location scouting is just immaculate here. It feels very 70s. The film stock they've chosen, the color timing, all the work. I'm assuming this was shot on film. It looks like it, but if not, boy, they did a good job of imitating it because it just looks period appropriate. Everything about it has a feel and a texture, and so much of the film's power is derived from the way it was made and the attention to detail. It's kind of like you do all this painstaking setup, so then it's easy when the actors are on set, or easier for them to get into character, to feel the vibe, and then play the scenes realistically. It must just be a hell of a good time to act in an Alexander Payne film, because you're given a great script, you're given confident direction, but you're also given a lot of room to play with your mannerisms. What's your approach to the material? There are just so many creative risks being taken by all the performers. Most of the performers. Some performances in the supporting areas are more tropey or stable, genre stable. So that then the actors can kind of be a little more wild. The main protagonists can be a little more unpredictable compared to the more stock reactions from the other characters. That's actually something interesting about the film, or about his work. He oscillates between what I'm going to call genre tropes or expectations, and then zagging, where you expect a zig. He allows himself that by kind of making the film in a way that looks like a film. He's not going to wow you with camera work. It's just super solid. But then, due to the handsome structure, screenplay-wise as well, that the entire story is hung on, then within that you have so much breathing room. And that's my takeaway from the movie is this breathing room. I keep coming back to it. I just felt that I was watching something with a lot of organic chemistry to it that the actors were able to find. And it wasn't forced. The characters don't always get along perfectly. In fact, even in later in the movie, after there's been a lot of, character growth, there's still some kind of like awkwardness even between characters, because the characters are a little bit awkward. It's about people trying to relate with each other. So it doesn't have a perfect beginning, middle, or end. It's very human in that way. Alexander Payne makes human pictures. He's a human being, and his characters feel like human beings. And that is a really big deal. I wish it wasn't, but at least out of the movies I see, his characters feel more human. Maybe I should watch more independent foreign films where people are making more human pictures than I'm used to watching, because I like big entertaining movies a lot of the time. I do like to have fun at the movies. But Alexander Payne, for me, allows me to have fun at the movies while also having a more dramatic, enriching experience. And I'm so thankful for that. And that's the power of comedy, or the power of dramedy, is as long as, because life is funny, life is humorous, and we should always be able to laugh at the strange moments. Payne gets that, and that's what his movies are about. And that's always, not always, but often, the character journey is, can someone who is maybe too rigid in a way learn to look at their life from one step back? Very zen. He's a very zen filmmaker in that way. I'm not sure about his religious background or his spiritual philosophy, but if I were to just judge him from his films, I'd say he's really about finding that that safe detachment point from what you held dear, and then finding a way to move on and turn the page. His works are all about turning the page, and this movie is no different, and it turns the page beautifully. And I'd give the movie a 9.5 out of 10, maybe charitable. I would give it higher, but that's my first reaction, and I have a feeling it's going to be an even more poignant watch on the next viewing, because what I have in my head right now is really the second half of the movie, and because that's where it really takes flight. And I want to go back and watch the first half again, in particular, to watch all the little notes that are added there. Now, knowing the characters better as I do, I think I'm going to find it incredibly poignant the way they've been set up, because the characters are very consistent throughout the movie. I'm not saying they don't change, but they are who they are, and they have a feeling and a flavor. And Paul Giamatti, his character is named Paul in the movie, and there's something to that. That's the sort of naturalism that gets brought to this thing. Yeah, so I want to watch out for those directorial notes, those acting notes, and it was a full piece of a tone. And there are just so many little moments that are almost, you could either laugh at it, or you could go, That's what it's all about. There's one in particular, I don't think it's spoiling too much, but a child loses one of his gloves, and then a character says to him, "You know why he threw your glove away and left you with one? It's so feel the pain even more of the loss of the one glove." And then the kid decides to go throw his other glove into the lake, into the river, and we watch it with him floating away. And this kid really has a moment there. It's kind of a funny, on-the-nose idea, but it's also very zany. That's the sort of, and yet it focuses on the kid, and it makes it really real for that kid. So we as the audience can kind of laugh, haha, that's a cute idea, and yet there's this depth to it. It's like watching a negative image, it develops in the mind further. So I want to go back and look at that moment now, knowing the whole movie. Is there more of a meaning there about this letting go of the other glove? I reckon that there is. And I reckon there's a lot of moments like that. Beautiful film. Fantastic. The end.